Hello. I did my Black American Literature presentation as a social lens, and I did the future of law enforcement in African American relations, how Claudia Rankine's Citizen and Patricia Smith's poems can influence future police officers. A long title, but I wanted to get the point across. When I read Citizen and read Patricia Smith's poems, I was very taken aback at how real they were, especially in what's happening in the present time, especially in the United States right now. So, we're going to be talking about how history keeps on repeating itself and how we can hopefully use these pieces of literature to help law enforcement of the future to understand the Black community better. There we go. So the future of law enforcement in the way of Westfield State University students. So criminal justice at Westfield State, that's actually why I came to Westfield State. It's because they're a big program. They're well known for it. So that was one of the big reasons why I chose to go to Westfield State University, was for criminal justice. Wanted to be a police officer, which I'll talk about in my next slide. So Westfield State University is known for its criminal justice. It's a large program. It has a lot of up and coming people who can be great law enforcement officials of any job. Lawyers, attorneys, probation officers, law enforcement officers, detectives, things like that. Researchers even too. So that's my audience of who I want to hear this, especially the Westfield State students, because I feel like they have a great potential for the future. So 2020 was a crazy year for a lot of reasons. I think the obvious one is COVID. Everyone thinks back to COVID, but something that wasn't always thought about was, or was thought about, but maybe not as much as COVID now, was the once again police brutality on Black Americans. I feel like it all started with George Floyd in May of 2020, where he was knelt on for over 9 minutes by Derek Chauvin, a former police officer who is now convicted of several crimes that had to do with George Floyd's murder. So where do we go from here? It seems like we always have this conversation. A Black man or woman gets killed at the hands of police. What do? We mourn them, we figure it out, and we'll move on, and then it happens again. So hopefully we can go to the law enforcement officers of the future and try to make a change. So going to my personal history, this is my fun slide. So I live in Blackstone, Massachusetts. That's their patch for the police officers here. So a lot of people who want to be police officers have family ties. That's not me. I don't. Have I ever had any positive, negative relations with police officers? Sometimes people, if they've had a positive relation, they're like, I want to be like that. Or if someone has a negative relation, I want to fix this. I want to be a police officer. No, I've never really had any relation with a police officer. I've never had to deal with one, luckily. So, not really from that either. It's awkward and funny, but when I was a kid, I loved watching the flashing lights and the sirens and listening to the sirens. That was why I became interested in police officers. But as I went into middle school, I learned more about them and found out that they helped people, things like that. I was engaged. I wanted to do something like that, which is just kind of where I started heading with my life. But obviously over time, especially during late high school and in college, you start hearing about these situations of Black men and women being killed or assaulted at the hands of police. So that was where I drew inspiration, and that's how this topic relates to me in a way. So one of the first pieces of literature that I used was Citizen by Claudia Rankine. One of the first quotes that I really felt a connection to was on page 143. And where is the safest place when that place must be someplace other than in the body? And I related that to Rodney King's beating. As you see above over here, that's Rodney King after his assault. And after he was treated. Obviously there's some lasting bruises there. And to the right of that is the actual, I believe it was cell phone or video footage, something like that, of Rodney King's beating by 4 LAPD officers. So I did some research on it. And I found out that these 4 LAPD officers, so Rodney King committed burglary. They tried to make a traffic stop on him. He fled. And once he stopped, they proceeded to beat him for 15 minutes. 4 of them beat him for 15 minutes. The other officers watched and didn't do a thing. And then to make matters worse, all 4 officers were acquitted, were found not guilty. Rodney King ended up having skull fractures, broken bones, broken teeth, and he also had permanent brain damage because of these hideous assaults. And I think that, for one, this quote can come back to our future law enforcement officers, people who want to be in the law enforcement field, especially at Westfield State, to understand this quote even more after hearing Rodney King's beating. I mean, about the details, about the gruesome details. Where's the safest place? When that place must be someplace other than the body. When we have a bad day at work or at school, we can always come back to our dorm room or our home or to our parents and feel safe. But where can these black men and women feel safe when they can't even feel safe in their body? So that hit me. And then the second quote I used from Claudia Rankine Citizen was on page 105. There was only one guy who was always the guy fitting the description, which I feel you can fit into almost every single situation with police versus black men and women. But I found this one especially towards fitting towards Trayvon Martin. Because that was one of the first killings that I heard about, in regard to Trayvon Martin wasn't actually killed at the hands of the police, but he was killed by a neighborhood watch person. But it was still something where someone thought that they were protecting the community by picking out this black 17-year-old to try to protect the community, which didn't make any sense. So I did more research on that as well, and I found out that Trayvon Martin was a 17-year-old black male who was walking back to one of his relatives' house in a gated apartment complex, and George Zimmerman, who was the neighborhood watch guy, saw him and decided that he looked suspicious, which he didn't. He's told the dispatcher he was on drugs, etc., that he was acting weird. I actually listened to the 911 call of it. And they ended up getting into a fight, and George Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin. And I felt this really related to there was only one guy who was always the guy fitting the description, because I feel like that's just what happened with Trayvon Martin. He's a young black boy walking to his relative's house, and somehow he's suspicious and on drugs because he's walking, and then he's killed. It doesn't make any sense, and I think that we can, I hope Westfield State criminal justice majors and all future law enforcement officers, and even law enforcement officers that are working today, can understand that doesn't make any sense, and I have hope that many do. So then I also used Patricia Smith's poems, the Incendiary Art, as one of my other pieces of literature that I thought really connected with me. So I found out about a young man by the name of Kajimi Powell. He had stolen a snack and 2 energy drinks from a convenience store and fled. The convenience store clerk called 911, stated he had a knife. I believe he may have had a knife. I'm not sure if he did in the end, but anyways, Kajimi Powell was walking towards them with his hands in his pocket, walking slowly, and they shot and killed him 6 times. Shot him 6 times and killed him. They, in their report, said that he was walking quickly towards them and had the knife in a threatening manner, but cell phone video was taken by a bystander and showed that his hands were in his pocket and he was walking slowly. And I found this connected to Smith's poem when she writes, "He lunges for your neck while whistling on a side street 3 blocks away." He does something completely different than what he's actually doing. Kajimi Powell lunges at you with his knife while he's actually just walking at you with his hands in his pocket. It just doesn't make sense. It's suspicious and terrible and just sad. Criminal justice majors, people of the future law enforcement career need to understand that this just isn't right. That, first of all, to falsify something like that, but number two, he's not doing anything. He's walking towards you calmly. His hands are in his pocket. People walk around with their hands in their pocket all the time. So I found that as very meaningful, that quote to the case of Kajimi Powell. And then the next one was Victor White III, who is on the bottom here. He was handcuffed in the back of a patrol car and then allegedly shot himself and killed himself in the back, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Because if he's handcuffed, how exactly did that happen? And how did he get in the back of the patrol car with a gun on him? Doesn't make a big connection. So did some research on that. And yeah, the coroner said that I guess he shot himself, which doesn't make any sense though, because the coroner also stated that the bullet entered his right chest and exited out under his left armpit. So it went along across like this. And if he's got his hands behind his back, I don't think many people can get a gun and reach all the way around like that. Number two, there wasn't a lot of gun residue for a close contact shot that would have had to happen with somebody handcuffed with their hands close to their body. So he was also left-handed. Why would he come to this side? This is my right hand to shoot a gun. Why wouldn't he go to this side if he did with his left hand? And number 4 or 5, I don't even know at this point, there wasn't a gun that was ever found. So that's, I think the most suspicious that I can get. And so Smith writes, "Guess he couldn't take it." One of the alive said to the other. "He didn't mean wearing the shackles. He meant not wearing them." And I found this related in the way of shackles, handcuffs, but more in the way of these black men and women. It's not that they can't take wearing the shackles, it's not wearing them, because in their life, day by day, they're still acting and living like they're in shackles because of how they're treated. And I think as criminal justice majors and future police officers can understand this, that they need to understand the other side of this. And I feel like through these poems and pieces of literature by Patricia Smith and Claudia Rankine Citizen, they can learn what they're going through, what these black men and women are going through. So the significance of all this, I believe that we need to understand our brothers and sisters, understanding, be there for each other. Top right, I found this picture of a white police officer shaking a black man's hand. It's just about understanding, hearing the other side out, talking to each other. And then this picture was very, very meaningful. It's a white police officer holding 3 young black children. Race shouldn't be a thing. We're all human. Under the skin color, we all have a heart. We all have bones. We all have blood. Skin color doesn't matter. Love's the answer. So, I hope that this hit you, like it hit me, and I hope that future police officers and people in law enforcement in all capacities, especially at Westfield State University, can feel like they learned something from this. So then I just end with all my image links and my works cited. So thank you.